At Arizona State University, we're bringing world-class education from our globally acclaimed faculty to you. Ranked #1 in innovation for 10 consecutive years and #2 among public universities for employability. ASU isn't just ahead of the curve, it's creating new paths to success. Earn your degree from the nation's most innovative university. Online, that's a degree better. Explore more than 300 undergraduate, graduate, and certificate programs at asuonline.asu.edu.
Having a life scholarship and being able to afford to go to college made me feel inspired to go.
When I got a life scholarship, it was such a relief.
I knew that I wanted to have an impact. Having a life scholarship through the SC Education Lottery was huge. It gave me the opportunity to make that impact right here at home.
The South Carolina Education Lottery. A better you, a better us, a better South Carolina. Visit sceducationlottery.com/betteryou.
At Arizona State University, we're bringing world-class education from our globally acclaimed faculty to you. Ranked #1 in innovation for 10 consecutive years and #2 among public universities for employability. ASU isn't just ahead of the curve, it's creating new paths to success. Earn your degree from the nation's most innovative university. Online, that's a degree better. Explore more than 300 undergraduate, graduate, and certificate programs at asuonline.asu.edu.
It's Friday, June 13th, 2025, and tomorrow, Saturday the 14th. Well, it's shaping up to be a day the U.S. has really been watching for months now.
Yeah, it really is. We're looking at potentially one of the largest single-day mobilizations in quite some time.
It's being called No King's Day, this nationwide wave of demonstrations.
That's the name catching on.
And our mission here, for you, is to take this stack of sources we've gathered and really dig into what No King's Day actually is.
Right. Who's organizing it? Why this date, June 14th? What are they hoping to, achieve?
Exactly. We want to get past the noise, get to the core insights from the material we have.
And right away, the sources point to this group, the 5D501 movement.
Okay.
And also how this date, June 14th, is just packed with symbolism. Multiple layers, even clashing symbols, all feeding into this.
Okay, let's start there then. This No Kings idea. Yeah. Where does that come from, according to the sources?
Well, the sources trace it back to a growing number of groups, activists, but also just everyday people.
And what's the concern driving it?
The main thread seems to be worries about executive power overreach, a sense that democratic norms are being disregarded by the current administration. That's how the material frames it.
And the name itself, No Kings, that obviously jumps out. Very historical feel.
Oh, absolutely intentional. It's meant to evoke the American Revolution, that whole spirit of rejecting monarchy, tyranny.
Right.
There's a direct quote from organizers in the sources. They want to say, no thrones, no crowns, no kings.
Framing it as pushback against acting like a king, essentially.
Exactly. That's the characterization they're putting forward.
And the group organizing, the 50501 movement. That name sounds symbolic, too.
It is, yeah. It breaks down pretty simply. 50 states, 50 protests, one movement.
Ah, okay. So that points to their strategy.
Precisely. The sources really emphasize this commitment to decentralized action, spreading out across the whole country.
Not just concentrating in D.C. or New York.
Right. Showing up everywhere. The idea is impact through sheer breadth. And the sources note this movement came together specifically around protesting second Trump administration policies. They started organizing these No Kings rallies back in February 2025.
And is it just them? Or are other established groups involved?
No, it's definitely not just 50501. The sources mention major players like Indivisible, the ACLU. They specifically cite ACLU Illinois as an example.
So established organizations are backing this or organizing locally?
Yeah, involved in supporting and organizing events in different places.
Okay, let's get into the date itself then, June 14th. This seems, like you said, packed with meaning. What are the layers here, according to the sources?
It's really central. First off, and maybe the most direct point, it's President Trump's 79th birthday.
Okay, so the protests are deliberately timed for his birthday.
Explicitly positioned as a counter-narrative,
Right.
a rejection of celebrating his leadership on that day. That's layer one.
Got it. What else makes June 14th significant?
Well, June 14th is also Flag Day in the U.S.
Right, honoring the American flag.
And the sources show the movement is trying to sort of reclaim that symbolism. They quote organizers saying, the flag doesn't belong to President Trump, it belongs to us.
Interesting. So it's a statement about patriotism, about who the flag represents.
Yeah, trying to separate national symbols from the current administration as they see it.
And then there's a third major event happening that day.
A big one. It's the U.S. Army's 250th anniversary.
Okay, an anniversary.
Yeah.
But the sources suggest this one's different.
Yes. They emphasize that President Trump has reportedly ratcheted up this anniversary into a very large, very expensive military parade planned for Washington, D.C.
A military parade in D.C.
Yeah.
Do the sources give any specifics on the scale?
They do. Reports mention hundreds of military vehicles, aircraft, thousands of soldiers marching, big production.
And the costs?
The estimates cited range quite a bit, but somewhere between $25 million and $45 million.
Wow. Okay, 25 to 45 million. That's substantial. And how do the No Kings organizers view this parade based on the material?
The sources report their view is pretty critical. They're calling it things like a made-for-TV display of dominance, and also a costly, wasteful, and un-American birthday parade that they believe is orchestrated primarily for Mr. Trump.
So they see it linked directly to his birthday, not just the Army anniversary.
That's the connection they're drawing, yes.
And this view of the parade then informs their actual protest strategy for the day.
Exactly. This is key. The sources highlight that instead of going head-to-head with the parade in D.C., they're urging supporters to rally outside the Capitol in their local communities.
Oh, okay. Spread out.
Right. The quote that really captures it is, "We're showing up everywhere he isn't to say no thrones, no crowns, no kings."
So avoid the stage set in D.C. and create hundreds of smaller stages everywhere else.
That seems to be the strategic thinking described.
That's fascinating. So, okay, pulling this together, the name, the date, the strategy, what are the core messages? What specific issues are driving this expected turnout, according to the sources?
Broadly, the material outlines aims like rejecting authoritarianism, billionaire-first politics, and what they call the militarization of the country's democracy.
Big themes. And they frame it, you said, as a response to a hostile government takeover.
Yes, that's the language used in the sources describing their perspective. Pretty strong framing.
What specific policies or actions do the sources point to as evidence for that takeover narrative?
Immigration seems to be front and center, a major driver, especially noted in states like California and Texas.
What about immigration specifically?
The focus is on stepped-up enforcement, plans for mass deportations. The sources bring up recent ICE raids in Los Angeles that reportedly caused unrest.
Right, I remember reading about that.
And also the controversial deployment of the National Guard, even U.S. Marines, in response. That deployment in California is apparently facing legal challenges from Governor Newsom against the administration.
And the language used by protesters about these actions.
It's very stark, according to the sources, quoting organizers accusing the administration of things like deporting Americans and disappearing people off the streets.
Heavy stuff. What other specific grievances fall under that hostile takeover umbrella in the sources?
They also mention claims the administration has defied our courts, attacked our civil rights.
Okay.
And another big one is opposition to policies they say have slashed our services while benefiting, quote, their billionaire allies.
That connects back to earlier things.
Yeah, the sources link this to previous protests mentioned against Trump and billionaire advisor Elon Musk back when Musk was leading the Department of Government Efficiency and pushing for federal spending cuts. So that billionaire first theme is tied to specific examples.
And the military parade we talked about fits in here too, as part of the militarization concern.
Exactly. The sources portray it not just as wasteful spending, but as a symbol of politicizing the military, consolidating power, drawing parallels to authoritarian regimes. It's like a visual representation of one of their main complaints.
Okay, so given all that, what are we likely to see on signs tomorrow? What themes do the sources expect?
The sources actually list some anticipated slogans. You'll likely see the main ones. No thrones, no crowns, no kings, obviously.
Right.
Also things like democracy, not dictatorship, hands off our rights, and reflecting the immigration focus, free families.
This sounds absolutely massive in scale. What are the sources projecting in terms of numbers and locations?
The numbers are pretty staggering, potentially. The sources suggest this could be one of the largest single-day mobilizations since Trump returned to office.
How large are we talking?
Nearly 2,000 events planned, that's the reported number, across more than 1,500 cities.
1,500 cities.
In all 50 states and the Commonwealth, millions of people expected to participate.
Millions. Wow. Okay, so where are the sources pointing as potential hotspots or areas of high activity?
Several places are highlighted. Los Angeles is definitely one. Seems to be a focal point because of those ICE raids and the troop deployment controversy we mentioned.
So protests expected downtown LA and in specific communities.
Yeah, downtown, but also places like Paramount and Compton are mentioned as affected communities expecting activity.
Chicago came up earlier, too.
Yes, Chicago. Sources mention Indivisible Chicago, ACLU, Illinois, organizing a big rally and march at Daley Plaza. And the city's already seen related protests recently, so there's existing tension.
Any other key cities flagged in the material?
Boston has mentioned multiple events, one timed with the Pride Parade. San Diego, a central event at Civic Center Plaza. Seattle is another one.
Why Seattle?
Protests planned in Cal Anderson Park and UW Red Square. And there are ongoing reported tensions between Governor Bob Ferguson and the administration over potentially sending the National Guard there, too.
In Philadelphia, that's the flagship event. Sounds important.
It does. The sources say Philly, birthplace of the Declaration of Independence, was deliberately chosen.
Why?
To create a symbolic contrast with the D.C. military parade, framing their protest as aligned with America's founding ideals, essentially.
It's interesting that the sources say this isn't just happening in the usual major coastal cities. Events planned in more conservative states, too.
Absolutely. The sources make a point of this. They cite local news reports confirming events and preparations in places like Texas, Oklahoma, Georgia, Kentucky, Nevada, North Carolina, Ohio, Tennessee.
So truly nationwide, across the political map.
That decentralized approach seems very real based on the reports.
Okay, so with millions expected, events everywhere.
Yep.
What's the official stance from the organizers on violence, and how are police preparing?
The sources stress this. The 5501 movement and No Kings organizers are publicly committed to nonviolence, strongly.
What are they telling participants?
Their communications urge people to seek to de-escalate any potential confrontation, to act lawfully, and very explicitly, no weapons at the events. That's a clear instruction mentioned.
But despite that call for peace, law enforcement sounds like they're on high alert.
Yes, definitely. The sources indicate agencies across the country are preparing. You see examples like Governor Abbott in Texas deploying the National Guard and state troopers.
Making statements about arrests.
Yeah, saying peaceful protest is fine, but property damage or harm will lead to arrests. Officials in places like Tulsa, Seattle are coordinating responses, saying they'll protect peaceful assembly, but are ready for escalation or illegal acts.
So there's a definite tension there. Organizers calling for peace, authorities preparing for potential trouble.
Exactly. That tension is palpable in the source material describing the situation.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, how should we understand the overall significance of what's planned for tomorrow, June 14th, 2025?
Well, No King's Day is clearly being framed and reported on as a pretty pivotal moment. It's this large-scale, very coordinated effort.
Not just random protest.
No. A significant slice of the population voicing opposition, not just vaguely, but against specific policies in what they see as threats to democratic norms. And that symbolic backdrop, the president's birthday, Flag Day, the big military parade, it creates this really unique, potent context for it all.
Yeah, that collision of dates and events is striking. It feels like there's a lot of inherent tension baked into the day, doesn't it?
Absolutely. You've got the organizers stressing peace, nonviolence, decentralization.
Butting up against this heightened law enforcement readiness and these underlying tensions, especially around immigration.
Yeah.
Troops.
Right. It means tomorrow will be watched very, very closely. How does it actually play out on the ground in 1,500 different places?
It really makes you think, doesn't it? Considering that historical name, No Kings, and that specific strategy showing up everywhere he isn't, decentralizing everything, what might this whole approach signal about how political dissent is evolving? You know, in the digital age, with this kind of networked organization, is it just about the specific policies, or is there something more fundamental changing in how people push back?
That's a great closing thought. It's definitely something these sources prompt you to consider, looking beyond the immediate events of tomorrow. What does this model tell us moving forward?
Breaking news from the stadium tonight as an anonymous fan foot the bill for 55,000 hot dogs, bringing that sweet tubed meat to everyone in attendance.
Free dogs! Yeah!
55,000 hot dogs? What does that even cost?
While the identity of this Frankfurter philanthropist remains anonymous, their all-beefy generosity will go down in history.
The new Mega Millions. More to win means more to give. How you spend it is up to you.
Yeah!
For game odds and details, visit sceducationlottery.com.